What's up, everybody? Chicago Goon here, bringing you another Arsenal talk. In this Arsenal talk, I'm just gonna be covering transfer stuff. I wanted to make a season preview type thing with predictions and whatnot, but it's tough to do. It really is tough to do because it's just a subject to change. I kind of made somewhat of a video yesterday talking about the preview of this upcoming season and what's going to be going on as far as the league, Champions League, stuff like that, and made a couple predictions, but again they're subject to change, and it's kind of pointless at this point to even make any type of predictions because we might have two players coming in very soon. Um, and I want to talk about that and only that because, obviously, if we don't get at least two more players in, one in the attacking side, one in the defensive side, I just don't see Arsenal making the top four this year. It just doesn't look good, obviously, for obvious reasons. Just because our defense is broken, our attack, our striker force is kind of like a joke currently, and things need to happen. And if those things do happen, um, that prediction would drastically change from not making the top four to really challenging for the league and possibly even winning the league. That's kind of how confident I am if we do make these signings. Because right now I was waiting to make this type of video, or make a season preview video, um, because I thought at this point I was going to be talking about either Lacazette and Mustafi or Mahrez and Mustafi, or in my little dream world, in everybody else's dream world, that we were going to get Lacazette and Mahrez at the same time. But again, that just doesn't seem the case. Just to cover Lacazette real quick, um, Leon came out today, actually, or yesterday, saying that if anybody wants to buy Lacazette, it's going to cost 60 million pounds. That's ridiculous. He is a good striker. He's a very good striker, in my opinion. I would love to have him, but for 60 million pounds, that's much. That's a little bit too much. If we come into a desperate point or a desperation point that there's just nothing else to buy. If Mahrez does say no to us or whatever, or we can't reach a final negotiated bid between Leicester City and Arsenal, then I would just say screw it. Pay the 60 million pounds and let's see what happens. But it looks like it's not going to happen. That's a little bit too much, and honestly, that's what happens when you sit on it and sit on it and sit on it. That's what happens. I mean, it's double of what we first initially bid in early June. So Leon obviously wants to keep a hold of him, and honestly, you know, it's just it's too late in the window to find a replacement striker for Leon, given the fact that they're going into Champions League, obviously. But enough of that, and let's get into the real news. Me covering Mahrez and Mustafi. Going to be showing you a number of tweets, three on Mahrez, one on Mustafi. That seem, obviously coming from real reliable sources, and that's something that, if you've been a fan of Arsenal for at least even 2 years, you know what's reliable and what's not at this point. You know what websites and reporters you can believe in, and what you can't believe in. There's podcasts, there's videos like this of Arsenal podcasts and videos where they cover every single website, regardless of how ridiculous a rumor is. They still cover it, even though they do a disclaimer saying that this website or this news outlet isn't reliable, but we're going to talk about it anyway. Just the fact, just for to make a video, like somewhat like Arsenal Fan TV, to where they just do a constant, an everyday video of the transfer window and what Arsenal is doing and what rumors come up and stuff like that. But again, you've been around long enough. I would say 2 or at least 3 years. You know what's reliable and what's not. And today, finally came out with a real reliable source for Mahrez. I'm going to show you the tweets. I'm going to read them off real quick here. It comes from Mohammed. I'm not going to butcher his last name. He does work in for a news outlet in France. He seems to be the oracle of France, to where our oracle is for Arsenal Football Club. And I'll show his tweet about Mustafi later on. I'm sure everybody has seen it anyway. But to get onto the Mahrez tweets, the first tweet is negotiations are ongoing between Arsenal and Leicester City. Arsenal made an offer for him. Mahrez very interested by Arsenal. Second tweet. More than the interest of Arsenal, Mahrez especially hopes to join a great club. If a big club is interested, Arsenal Football Club or Chelsea Football Club, it must act quickly. The final tweet was Leicester hopes to keep Mahrez. Arsenal Football Club made an offer. Negotiations ongoing. It's a game of the market, uh, but there is only one winner at the end. This guy has, and let's just cover this real quick. He is a very reliable source. I went into Reddit today and looked at the thread. One of the threads on the soccer um, uh, subs. It's just called soccer. There's a thread about Mahrez and these tweets and whatnot. And Man United fans came into the thread and said that this guy is very reliable. He called, Jesus, I can't. Um, he he called the Martial um, transfer last season before anybody else did. He called the Zlatan Ibrahimovic free transfer to Man United this year. He also called the Conte transfer to Chelsea Football Club before anybody else did. So this guy is like the oracle in a lot of respects. Is that he just doesn't post stuff. He just doesn't talk about stuff. So he can just be the center of attention on Twitter. The stuff he spits is the truth, for lack of a better term. um, he just doesn't make tweets just for the sake of making tweets. um, and 90% of the time, you know he does have his sources, and he's very reliable. Much like the oracle. The oracle might get one transfer wrong out of 10 or something. So he basically kind of has like a 90% batting average when it comes to calling what Arsenal is going to do in the transfer window. um, Obviously with the oracle, he already said things about Mustafi, and I'll put that on the screen as well. About that, we have interest, and we are currently possibly in talks with Valencia to try to get him in. There's other ITKs out there that are saying that we're trying to get him in before Friday, which they only have 2 days left to do that. I don't know how fast track they can do that negotiation, but I'll get onto that later. But going back to Mahrez, this is huge news. Over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, when you're really hearing the Mahrez news, there just wasn't a reliable source. There really wasn't. There was just some other websites, some off-brand websites from France, talking about it, but nothing concrete. Maybe that was Mahrez's agent talking through the social media outlets, through the websites, through the the news media, to try to get this ball rolling, to try to get the spotlight shined on his client, because that's how it kind of breaks first. Is the agent kind of breaks stuff, and then the clubs come in, maybe even the player as well. Like I said, this entire time, the more Mahrez doesn't speak at all is better for us. You look at his Twitter page. He doesn't make. He hasn't made a tweet, I think, for God, at least 2 or 3 weeks now. That's huge. Maybe the negotiations are a lot further advanced than we even know at this stage. Supposedly, the first bid for Mahrez was something around 35 million. I don't know if there's conflicting reports whether it was pounds or whether it was euros. I'm hoping it's pounds, just because Balassi, a day ago went to Everton for 30 million pounds from Crystal Palace, and you're looking at Balassi and you're looking at Mahrez, to where Mahrez is the current PFA Player of the Year from last season, and you're only offering 5 more million pounds for the PF Player of the Year. So I think the price tag is going to be at least between 45 and 50. It has to be, especially when you're moving in league. you're always going to add at least 5 to 10 million more pounds just for that fact alone. Who knows how far Arsene Wenger wants to go? There's another news outlet. It's at GFFN, talking that Mahrez and Mustafi was the top priority for Arsene Wenger the entire summer. Now you're asking yourself, okay, why did this Mahrez thing take so long? It's quite possibly they were talking to him throughout the summer. They're trying to get a good gauge on him to see if he would want to move. Obviously he's coming off a championship season with Leicester, and you're kind of thinking, okay, why would I want to move? But then Mahrez sees Conte leave, out the door. One of their key contributors last season, obviously if you saw Leicester City, Conte and Mahrez were basically pulling the strings while Vardy was getting all the glory for whatever reason. Obviously because of Vardy's story and where he came from and the lower leagues, Sunday leagues, whatever. He was the more entertaining, I guess, story, even though Mahrez and Conte both came from League Two in France. But maybe Mahrez is looking, Conte's leaving, went over to Chelsea. Um, he's looking at this. He's not, he didn't look happy throughout his entire time this preseason. Maybe he was trying to force a way out somehow, trying to get in contact with a bigger club like Chelsea or Arsenal, hopefully us, and trying to get that move, and trying to maybe almost like a Cesc Fabregas, where he was making waves a little bit, especially at the end of the season of the 10 and 11 season, and of course that summer to where, you know, he was faking injuries and whatnot just to try to get the move, and of course saying in the press that he would only want to go to Barcelona and only Barcelona. It would really help out, obviously, if Mahrez did come out and finally did say, yes, I want to go to Arsenal, because it would just be a whole lot easier for us, especially with the negotiations as far as the bid goes, and and for him to get into the side. Um, but maybe it took the entire summer to really convince him. Obviously we can compete with the likes of Chelsea as far as wages go. Obviously Chelsea would probably pay more money as far as a bid goes, maybe even more wages. But again, they don't have Champions League football. They don't have anything this year. Obviously, they're going to be making a huge push for it this season, which scares me a little bit. Liverpool scares me a little bit. Chelsea scares me a little bit. Obviously, Man United scares me a little bit. Um, but again, we have things that we can offer that Chelsea can't currently. And what we have over Chelsea is consistency. If they didn't win the Champions League, in 2012, they would have missed out on Champions League football. So that's like twice in the last like 5 years that they would have missed out and got knocked out of the top four. So that's not a huge amount of consistency there right there. Yes, they won the league 2 years ago, but at the same time, you're looking to, as a player, if you want to move to a big club, you're looking for that consistency that you can play Champions League football every single season. So it's good for us. It really is, and it's just huge news. It really makes me want to jump on the hype train for Mahrez now, rather than a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Yes, it was good to talk about. It was good to throw out opinions and whatnot about what could happen if he does join. But there was no real reliable sources. It was just it was just a good feeling to say that maybe we're in for Mahrez, because he would just he would help transform the attack for us. He would bring, my ideal winner scores between 12 and 15 goals in all competitions, and then adds another 10 to 12 assists in all competitions, and he can do that. He obviously proved it last year. Like I said, he was pulling the strings with Conte the entire year, and again, he got recognized by the PFA and his peers to be the player of the season. And you, why wouldn't you want someone like that? He kind of reminds me of a left-footed Robert Perez. Maybe not so much as the power that Robert Perez had. Robert Perez was a little bit more built, obviously, but you're looking at Mahrez. He's a little bit of a twig, but his on-the-ball skills, his vision, his passing, it's something to really, really like, kind of like drool over almost. That you would just wish that Arsenal would pick up a player like this, because it's something that we severely lack. People who think that we don't need a winger, all you have to do is look at the last 2, 3 years, even 4 years, and look at our output of our winners over that span, and look at how many goals and how many assists we've had, whether it's on the right wing or whatever wing that Alexis Sanchez doesn't play on. And it's pretty pitiful. It's one of the reasons why we fell off in the 13-14 season because we didn't have any output on the wing. It's last year, same damn thing. Even the year before, we just didn't have uh, the consistency. And I mean, if you want to be a big club, you want to compete with things. That's what made it so good early on in the late 90s and early 2000s because we were consistent. The Ox isn't consistent. Theo's not consistent. Joel Campbell's not consistent. Mahrez is better than all three of them. So why wouldn't you want to bring in a player who is just better? And it makes sense. For all the people that think that it doesn't make sense, well, I don't know what to tell you. You know, um, if you don't like consistency, if you still have faith in Oxlade Chamberlain, you still have faith in Theo, um, you know, have at it. It's all on you. Um, can they prove us all wrong? Sure, but there's no proof of it. Theo needs to uh, regain his form from the 12 and 13 season. The Ox, I don't know. There is no evidence that he can ever perform consistently and score consistently. I mean, he has less than 10 Premier League goals in all the time he's been with us. I mean, that's not good enough. We need that winner to produce. Um, but the way you're looking at it now, maybe once Giroud gets back, you're looking at Giroud up top, Mahrez on the right, Sanchez on the left, um, and then of course Ozil in the middle, and then you're looking at a partnership of maybe Chaka and Santi or Chaka and Ramsey, um, because I think we make a signing like this. This is almost like saying, maybe we'll use Santi periodically, but I highly doubt that. I think he'll be sitting right next to Chaka for most of the season. Of course, he'll be a great backup, obviously, for Mesut Ozil to really rotate the squad, because that's one thing that's kind of hurt us near the end of the season is we just, or at least Wenger, runs players into the ground and he keeps on playing and playing them and playing them till we have nothing left at the end of the season. And we need to change that. We need to, um, you know, keep players fresh. I'm not ecstatic that Ramsey and Sanchez are being kind of fast tracked, unlike all the other players, to where all the other players had a real preseason. It looks like Ozil, Koss, and Giroud are going to have a real preseason. We might not see um, we might not see um, Ozil and Giroud and Koss. Possibly, we might see Koss in the Leicester City game because we just have to. But you might not see Ozil and Giroud until the Watford game, which is the third game of the year. Um, to go back into the Mahrez stuff, though, real quick, of talking about our upcoming games, it's quite possible that this deal will not get done until after the Leicester City game. Just for the pure fact that, does he really want to go into the King Power Stadium and the second game of the year and just get booed and just get treated like shit by his home fans, by his former home fans? That might be a little bit difficult for the player. There's some players who could just brush it off and they don't give a shit. It's all about where they're at then and now, and then uh, they just get on with it. But it's quite possible that this deal might not get done until after that game, which is only a week and a half away. It's a Saturday game, so you're looking at a week and a half. It's quite possible. You might look at this weekend and see what's going on, and see if some kind of phantom injury happens to Mahrez this upcoming weekend games. And if there is some kind of phantom uh, injury, then you kind of have a good idea that he's going to be on his way out and he's going to Arsenal, which would just be fucking awesome. But again, you're looking at a possibility too when you're looking at the lineup of possibility. You know, you saw it in the Manchester City game. Alexis Sanchez playing as a striker. Maybe this was Arsene Wenger's plan the entire time was to have Giroud and of course Alexis Sanchez as your strikers, and then at times you can still move Sanchez back to the wingers. You know, if you're playing obviously a park the bus team, you'll probably want to start Giroud. You know, if you're playing a more high intense game against say a Man City, uh, uh, any of the top clubs, even in Champions League, you might want to start Sanchez up top instead of Giroud, even though Giroud is pretty decent when it comes to Champions League football. Um, but that's the possibility. You know, maybe this was his plan the entire time to put Sanchez as a striker, Mahrez as the right wing, and then you plug in either Theo, the Ox, or Iwobi as your left winger. Um, Now you're looking at the lineup too. You're looking at the roster, and you're thinking, well, one person might be out the door, and that'll probably be Joel Campbell more than likely if we do get Mahrez into the fold. So that's a possibility. Maybe, like I said, it might be his plan the entire time. This source GFFN has said that you know Mahrez and Mustafi was the uh, plan of Arsene Wenger. That those two players were the priority the entire time. You know how reliable that news is. Who knows? Maybe they're just running with the story because they also said early in the day that he's going to stay with Leicester City. Mahrez is going to stay with Leicester City for at least this season. But then 2 hours later, they say we have crucial news about Mahrez, and then it went into the that Mahrez and Arsenal and Leicester City are in negotiations currently, and then the last tweet was that Arsene Wenger's plan the entire summer was to prioritize Mahrez and Mustafi as the prime targets. If that's even true, if that's even remotely true, that's great for us. That means possibly that Arsene Wenger is ready to splash the cash for for Mahrez because he's going to cost the most. From what we're hearing about Mustafi, obviously the Oracle made his tweet a couple of days ago that we're interested, that negotiations might be going on currently. We've heard, from other sources saying that the transfer fee is going to be something around 25 million pounds plus 5 million pounds in add-ons, whether that's in euros or pounds, who knows. I know he has a buyout clause of something like 42 million euros, but again, Valencia, I guess they don't have a problem with having cash reserves, but the problem is that they have to get under FFP, I guess. Still, I guess they're having problems with that. So selling off Mustafi it will be a good thing for their club just because they can get under FFP and they can not get fines and possibly lose out on European football if that's the case. How much that is true, I don't know. That's what some Valencia fans have said on Reddit, that they're having problems with FFP, and so they need to sell at least one, maybe two players before the window closes just to get under FFP. So that's good for us. You know, Mustafi is the things I've been reading about him, the things I've been seeing about him, and all these different profiles that I've been reading about him. How we weren't in for this guy from the very start of the summer is beyond me. The guy seems like one of the bargains of the summer as far as center halves go. I mean, some people are saying, well, he'd be the third choice. The things I'm reading about Mustafi, he should be second choice right next to Koss, day one that he gets into the club. He just seems like the perfect. He had the most interceptions last season in La Liga. He's a great tackler. I guess he's great on the ball. You know, obviously he was playing left back for the German national team in the Euros, I believe, and the guy just screams he can be world, and he's 24 years old too. He's young. Even if he doesn't quote unquote work out, his resale value is still through the roof. You know, we could still put a decent buyout clause for him. You know, obviously there'll be some buyback money or whatever for Valencia if we do sell him on. Same with Mahrez. That's why go back to Mahrez. I'm jumping all over the place. I'm sorry because I'm just kind of like excited with all this news that we're actually going to probably bring in two quality players, two players that we can actually plug straight into the starting 11, which is what we need. Buying reserve players, buying subs and backup players. We can't think like that anymore as Arsenal Football Club. You want to win the league, you want to challenge for Champions League and win Champions League one day. You have to buy prime players who are going to be plugged in immediately into the starting 11, and obviously Mahrez and Mustafi are those players. I think even before Gabriel got injured, obviously it started to with the Gabriel injury, it really started to advance in the talks and us trying to get Mustafi as soon as possible, rather than holding back till maybe until the end of the window or close to the end of the window. Obviously we have a defensive crisis currently, with Koss won't be ready for another week or two. Gabriel's out for you know 6 to 8 weeks, they said, but in Arsenal terms, it's probably about 3 months, just because once he does get back from injury, he's going to need to get back into fitness and all that. Per Mertesacker is currently going to be out for 5 to 6 months. So we have a real crisis right now because we're going to have two kids basically playing at the Liverpool game, and that's going to be scary. Of having Holding and Chambers as your starting center halves for that game, against a real side, regardless of what you want to say about Liverpool, whatever kind of jokes you want to crack at Liverpool. They're still a big club. With Klopp having a full preseason, they're going to come riding high from beating Barcelona at Wembley 4-0. So they're going to be riding high into this game. They're going to be fully confident that they can beat us. And of course, when we start off the season, the last 2 out of 3 years, we lost the opening game, lost to Aston Villa, lost to West Ham. We needed extra time. Aaron Ramsey scored an extra time against Crystal Palace to get us our 3 points, and that was our only win in the last 3 years. So we don't start off well, obviously, for obvious reasons. Some of it's for players coming back from the World Cup or tournaments and stuff like that, possibly injury, yada yada yada, what have you. But we really need to start off strong this year. Obviously, you're going to see Sanchez up front. You're going to see probably Theo and the Ox play on the wings. Santi playing as number 10, Chaka playing as the holding midfielder. You're going to see probably Ramsey playing as the CM, and of course the back line of Bellerin, Holding, Chambers, and Monreal. I almost rather see, in a way, almost rather see a Chaka and Conklin partnership just for that first game to protect those kids, because they're going to need all the protection that they can get. I think Chambers is, obviously Chambers is a little bit more experienced in the Premier League than Holding is, but if you watched Holding in that Man City game, Aguero got behind him any chance he got. It's good for us, I guess. James Milner and also Daniel Sturridge will not be available for the game, so that's good for us. But again, making season predictions currently is you just can't do it, because hopefully players will be coming in. Hopefully these negotiations, especially Mustafi. Right now, Mustafi is, if we can get him in before the first game, that'd be great. I know some people are saying, "Oh, we can't do that, and we can't plug him in right away." Well, we're kind of almost forced to, um, because if you look at the roster, we only have two active center halves, and one we just bought, and the other one hardly got any time over the last 2 seasons. Especially last season, Chambers hardly got a game. So it's kind of scary to have two kids back there, rather than you can plug Mustafi in. Even though he is young, he's still experienced. He's playing in La Liga. He's played with the German national team. He's a mainstay now on German national team. And if you're a mainstay on German national team, you're either world class or borderline world class or top tier in your position, because it's tough to crack into that team. Obviously you look at you know I'm a fan, of course, of the U.S. national team, and we have a lot of German Americans on our squad, that had dual citizenship between United States and Germany, but they chose us because it's easier to crack into United States national team rather than the German national team. Obviously we got the likes of Fabian Johnson, John Brooks, um, Zelalem as well. A few other names I'm not going to go into, but again, cracking into the German national team, that's a tough thing to do. He was part of the World Cup team. He didn't really play though, but of course he was a mainstay and started I think almost every single game in this Euros. So just by that alone, dude's a good player. Dude's got a great player, and right now he's almost more, he's more of an asset almost than Mahrez is right now. The Mahrez thing can, potentially wait 2 weeks or a week and a half until we after we play Leicester City at the King Power. So it's not something that needs to be fast tracked. Obviously, it would be great if we could, but again, I think these negotiations are going to go on as long as possible to try to convince Mahrez to stay with Leicester City. Obviously, he doesn't want to stay there. He denied a contract, you know, which I'm sure Leicester City, after the season he had, wanted to re-sign him to put a high uh, buyout clause into his contract, and they just couldn't do it. And it seems like he doesn't have a buyout clause for whatever reason. Probably because he cost more money. Conte had a buyout clause. Even Vardy had a buyout clause, even though that Vardy didn't really cost that much money to begin with. Um, so that's kind of odd. The club must have not have thought too highly of Mahrez even when they bought him, that they didn't put any type of buyout clause into his contract, just in case he did blow up or he did do well with the team. Even they did get Musa. If you've been watching that kid play during the preseason, that kid is rapid. He looks great. That looks like a great pickup for Leicester City. But at the same time, hopefully we can get Mahrez and hopefully we can get Mustafi in within the next week. It'd be nice to have Mustafi going into the Leicester City game for sure. And then it would be nice to just get Mahrez after the Leicester City game, so the fans don't have to give him shit. I would be okay with that if it was a definite slam dunk that we were going to get him. I can wait another week and a half, and you plug those players in. You know, with the current players that are out, like Ozil and Koss. You even plug in Alexis Sanchez. I wish Arsenal would give him a run of games. Give him 7 to 10 games at striker and see what he can do. See what happens. Because if you watch that Man City game, it took us a little while to get into the game. It took us about a good 15 to 20 minutes to really get into the game. But once we got into the game, we were quick. We were so much faster than Man City, um, going up the flanks, going down the center. It didn't matter, and we were able to do that because we have a pacey striker up top, and Sanchez knows how to play the position to where, Theo, he just relied on his pace. To where Sanchez knows how to position himself over the field. He knows how to position himself. Who's the weaker center half? Who's the weaker of the two fullbacks? He pays attention to that stuff. That's what makes him world class. That's what makes him the player he is because of his positioning and to use all of his strengths to the best of his ability um, to get the edge on the defense. And I just wish he would just give him the run of games because, like I said, you're looking at then Sanchez um, as a striker, Ozil playing behind him, Mahrez on the right or left wing, and then Theo or the Ox on the left or right wing. It's a pretty deadly attack. The only thing that you maybe might be scared of, which I don't see happening, is if you're seeing Mahrez and also uh, Theo on the wings, because obviously Theo's not the greatest defender in the world. He doesn't track back a whole lot. Um, Hopefully he proves us wrong. Maybe the best thing that ever happened to him was not making the England national team. I think he thought he was going to make it just on name recognition alone, and that he played for Arsenal and blah blah blah, and then he didn't even get chosen, not even the preliminaries of before they even went to France to even try to make the team. He didn't even get that kind of invite. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise for Theo to finally wake up and to realize that he needs to actually start playing some football, and he needs to get back to that 12 and 13 form. But um, to get back into it, Mahrez not the greatest defender either, even though you know Leicester City played more of a counter-attacking football last season. He still wasn't one of the best defenders. He didn't track back as much, so that's kind of a scary thought of having him and Theo on the pitch at the same time. Now, if we play a park the bus team, then it's okay to have those guys out there because you'll have the likes of Chaka, maybe even a Conklin, or you'll have our defense set up um, better than it was in previous years. Hopefully, maybe we won't have both fullbacks pressing forward like we did so much last year. Maybe we only have Bellerin pushing forward while Monreal stays back, so we can still have a back four of the two center halves, Monreal, and then of course Chaka. And again, Mahrez loves to get behind. He does read the game well. He's very aware. There's several times over the last two games, one against Barcelona and the other against Man United, where he got behind several times and he just wasn't picked out by his teammates, and you could see the frustration in his face each time that he didn't get picked out by his teammates. But here at Arsenal, Chaka can pick him out in a heartbeat. Ozil can pick him out in a heartbeat. You know, Santi obviously too. The jury is still out on Aaron Ramsey. He needs to get back to his 13 and 14 form. There's several players. I think this is going to be their last season with Arsenal if they don't prove that they can be consistent on a week-to-week basis. Theo being one, Oxley Chamberlain being two, and I think Ramsey. Even though I think Ramsey might be wanting to leave the club, I think he just has it in him that he just wants to leave. That he's just going to be playing. Hopefully, but hopefully he can regain that form, and hopefully he just proves me, everybody else wrong that doubts him. Same with Theo, and maybe the Ox can find some type of finishing and some type of football IQ this season. But I think for those three players, even Jack Wilshere is another one. Jack Wilshere, being how injury prone he is, you cannot continue on, can offering these people contracts, offering them places in the team because we just can't afford it. We're wasting money on players who are just injured all the time and who are not consistent enough, and we just can't do it. We have a great CM who can cover as a holding midfielder as well, and El Nani who just the game just is not big enough for him. Or the game isn't too big for him, I should say. The guy just looks so comfortable on the ball, passing the ball, defending. He just does everything right. That's the way a CM is supposed to play. And I would almost say to start Shaka and El Nani against Liverpool. To be honest with you, I love what I see from him. He just a good player, and one day he can just be a great player if given the time and given the opportunities. And he looks like he wants the opportunity. That's the difference between players who think they deserve it and players who want it. That's what you want. That's what you want. That's what we need at Arsenal is players who want it, players who want to prove that they belong. And ever since Elneny got to the club, he's been proving us, and it's been great. It's been great to watch him grow and see how good he is, and wonder why it took so long, for a whole transfer window or a whole half season to get him into the club, because we could have used him in the first half of the season last year. Um, and I think if he had the full season, his transition into the side would have been non-existent by the second half of the season, and it could have propelled us even further, especially when Santi and Conklin went down at the same time. So you're looking at there's a lot of positives in Arsenal, but then there's also some negatives too, and you want to start weeding out some of those negatives because at the end of the day, you want to win the league. You want to compete in Champions League, and you have to prove these things time and time again so that players keep on choosing us. Players want to keep on coming to Arsenal because the day that it doesn't happen, you know, if we get knocked out in the round of 16 again, we only get top four and we don't challenge for the league, we're going to start having a reputation that we just don't have any ambition, which obviously in some ways we don't. So that things, those things can change. Those things can change by on the pitch and winning games and being consistent and bringing back that style of power and pace back to Arsenal. Screw the old ways after the Invincibles left to where we went to ticky tacky Spanish Inquisition, if you will. That's when Spain was coming up, and they had their riches of midfielders, which they still do. But that's how they it changed the whole style of football in a way, and it changed Arsene Wenger for whatever reason. To whatever reason, he went away from that power and pace. And, he went over. He You can still have power and pace and be still technically gifted as a footballer, but for whatever reason, Arsene Wenger went away from it. He was trying to maybe keep up with the modern game when he should have just stayed with what was working prior. And it seems like with if you get a Mahrez into the side, you get a Mustafi into the side. Obviously Chaka is just, the guy is all power. He has a mean streak to him, but he also has a little bit of a discipline to him as well. People are concerned about his discipline on the pitch. If you look, I've heard a couple podcasts over this last week or so talking about Chaka and how the second half of last season with Mönchengladbach, people were telling him he has to calm down. He can't get so many yellow cards. He can't get so many red cards. They need him on the pitch. They need their leader on the pitch. And he did. He calmed down. He started playing the game, and that's when Gladbach took off and they were able to reach top four again. So I mean, you're looking at some of these signings, and you're looking the way Arsenal's looking right now. You're looking at possibly the return of that power and pace and that great technical skill back to Arsenal. The only thing that we're lacking, of course, is a pacey striker. But maybe Sanchez can be that guy now. Maybe he's kind of accepted that. Maybe Arsene has talked with him, saying that, what do you feel about being the lead striker or being the striker and giving you a run of games? And quite possibly Sanchez said, let's do it. If it means bringing in another great player or two, then let's do it. Let's see what happens, and I hope it happens. But again, this has been great news over the last few days for Arsenal Football Club in the transfer market, because it looked like a disaster over the last few weeks now, and things need to get done. Obviously, 3 weeks about so to the window closes, but if we do get these two players, and man, it might be a fun season. It might, a few days ago it was looking like it was going to be a dire season. It was just going to be a tough season to watch. But now you're looking at these two players possibly coming in. You're just like, yeah. I mean, that's how much just two players can make a difference in anyone's predictions or anybody's excitement. Is and that type of quality coming into the side, and how it's going to energize some of the other players as well. Maybe some of the other players even know. Mustafi made he follows Chaka on Instagram, but he liked one of his photos, I guess, yesterday, and people are looking into that, saying, "Oh, he's coming to Arsenal. He's definitely coming to Arsenal." But he was following Chaka already for whatever reason. I don't understand why, but but things are looking up. Things are looking a lot better than they were 3 days ago, and craziness in football. That's what can happen. Things can change by the hour, by the minute, by the day, and let's hope we get these two players in, because we definitely need them to just be better. This is kind of proven in a way that we do have some ambition somewhere, that we're willing to spend this type of money. Like I said, Mahrez thing, I think it's going to get up to 50 million. Um, and the Mustafi was already basically maybe about 30 million. So you're looking at anywhere between 75 to 80 million pounds, and this is what we want to see Arsene Wenger do: spend the money, make the squad better, um, make us get excited for the season, and let's put some hope and some excitement into the season, because we definitely need it. We definitely need it. It's time to push. It's time to not keep on sitting behind the eight ball about all these other teams who are spending 175 million, 150 million, what have you, whatever type of money they're spending. We need to start jumping out in front of these teams rather than looking always looking behind them. So things are looking up. Hopefully, hopefully, hopefully.